it too soon to make jokes about the Civil War? So everyone's playing a different game, and I'm playing a few. But one I want to play right now, I'm just going to start with this, kind of put it out there, because I read about, I usually like to read a little bit about where I'm going, especially when I go overseas, but even when I go to cities I haven't spent a lot of time in. And I read about Atlanta, and I saw the demographics of Atlanta. And I would just like to point out that people of color are underrepresented in our industry. And they're definitely underrepresented in this room. And I will guarantee you, everyone who is bitching about not being able to find talent and like have this thing, there's someone within probably 5 miles of this room right now that would love to kill it for you. That's a person of color. So let's try to do better next year. For like the next 100 years. Anyway. So with that, I made 147 slides, and I want to spend 5 minutes playing chess. So it's going to be fun for me, right? And let's just go. We'll go. Okay, ready? Let's go. First, a word from my sponsor, Pivotal. This is my sponsor. Our mission: to transform how the world builds software. Woo! All right, we got that over with. Now, let's talk about me. No, just kidding. This is like, all these are more stories, and some of these stories are on the internet and whatever. But I worked on a bunch of projects, and I wrote some stuff, and I organized DevOps Days, whatever. So this is probably the most important slide, because this is my introduction to my Twitter handle. And also, just to let you know what kind of narcissist you're dealing with, I made myself a logo. So that's my logo, personal logo. And then also, just for your safety in the future, Little Idea comes in various configurations of hair and beard. So if you see me with a different configuration, don't be afraid. Same monster. This is the second most important slide. This is my new podcast with Jess, and it's really fun, and you should listen to it and subscribe on YouTube, because I need 100 by the 30 days so I can change my URL. So we just started it. First one was on March 17th. It's really fun. We talk about stuff. There's a great rant about Theranos on there if you want to go have fun. So Chris said, oh, we're going to do this thing, and we're going to do map days and serverless and DevOps days, and it's all going to be together. And I was like, great. I want to do 3 talks. It's like, oh, and I wrote abstracts, and I was like, oh, I'm going to do a DevOps Days talk about rehabilitating your DevOps injuries. That's going to be a great talk someday. And then I want to do a talk about, here's the map, what's the best move, which you're going to get like probably 50, 60% of. And then I was going to do a talk for serverless, which is basically for every DevOps project I ever started, serverless was essentially the goal. Like aspirationally, to be able to provide that level of frictionless developer productivity. Those would be great talks. But then he's like, no, 1 talk. And so I was like, all right, let's do it. Omakase. You ready? So my specialty is like cramming lots of really interesting points, made very poorly, into a 30-minute talk. And so like this is a bunch of stuff we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about me. We're going to talk about blah, blah, blah. Like you've seen all these words if you've been paying attention, right? So this, I think, this is a summary of everything that's going on right now. You're going to continuously DevOps microserverless, or you're going to lose to someone who is, right? That's buzzword compliant bingo, right? But for real, this is a real talk. Most important stuff. This is critical stuff. And I say this in almost all my talks. This is the first talk I'm not going to tell you to read the SRE book, but you should read the SRE book. I didn't put in a slide. So learn to read the SRE book. Learn to write so you can communicate with your friends and coworkers. Learn to speak. And then, last but not least, very important, live tweet this at Little Idea. All right. And then also, for future reference, if you don't quote Little Idea, the DevOps Days really happened. And I know we've already like far exceeded the necessary quota for that. And then I also have a personal goal one of my games I'm playing is I'm trying to quote Shakespeare more and more. So I think this summarizes most of my career. And just, I'll let you soak in it. I won't read all that. But for real, I didn't really appreciate how great Shakespeare was until recently. Fantastic. All right, so I invented DevOps. Yeah. Whoa. This is embarrassing. I didn't invent DevOps. I stole it. I stole it from all my friends. Because good DevOps copy. But great DevOpers steal. Right? There is no root cause, but we're gonna forego that, and we're gonna talk about some stuff that happened. So this is a Velocity Conference 2009, where John Allspaw did a talk with Paul Hammond, and they talked about doing 10 deploys per day, and it was mind-blowing for all these people because they never thought of 10 deploys a day, even though now it's like, 1 deploy a second or less at some of these places. And I happen to be in the audience, and back in the day, I used to live tweet like, people do now, but I don't. And I tweeted this. So don't say no, you're not respecting other people's problems. Velocity Conf, DevOps working together. This was 2009. And I tweeted a bunch of other stuff, and I tagged that way. And at the same time, I was already working on organizing a conference with Patrick. So the DevOps Days format of having open space together with presentations, that was my innovation, or whatever. And it was mostly a ploy by me to be able to get interesting people to come and do open space with me. But I knew no manager would send their people to do open space, so I had to get people with like Google logos or whatever to give talks so I could get my open spaces, because it's all about me. Anyway, so Patrick named it DevOps Days from those tweets, because we were working on it, and he's like, at the time I was calling it Agile Infrastructure, which we'll come back to. This is all just some framing. So this is legacy DevOps, right? So this is Werner Vogel's, before DevOps is a word, 2006, talking about if you build it, you run it, and that you need that customer feedback loop. This is Jesse Robbins, who also came from Amazon, talking about how operations is a secret sauce and the difference in the toil. This is me at Velocity 2008, talking about the wall of confusion and how you communicate with ticket systems makes people unhappy, and maybe worse, right? And this is like where a lot of us live. Because we have these opposing forces in our organizations. We set up games, like this is a recurring theme, is games of rules and payoffs for different things, and they're kind of against each other. Like we actually incentivize people with different things. And at the time, 2009, before DevOps the word, I wrote this chapter in this book, Web Operations, called Agile Infrastructure, which Jennifer very kindly told me was great at this speaker dinner. And it is great, and you should go read it from 2009. It's still like pretty good. So also, just to keep in mind, Patrick, right now, like if you go follow what Patrick's doing, he's using more serverless at you. Like for most values of you, he's definitely using a ton of Lambda, right? All right, so where were we? 2006, we're going to call that before cloud, because that's when Amazon started. That's the first AWS services. And then after 2009 is after DevOps, right? So that's a little framing. And the 3 years in between, it's like, whatever, Immaculate Conception or something, I don't know. And then there's this Simon guy who taught me about this stuff. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. But first, let's keep going. So enough about me. Why are we here? DevOps Map Serverless Days Camp. Yay. But that's not really why we're here. We're here for this. Oh, digital transformation, right? We want business value. Oh. And last but not least, as we already established, we want to continuously DevOps microserverless. Because software is eating the world. Boring. Oh, software. What are you doing? Software didn't just get hungry. That's BS. Like, that did not happen. Like, there's this thing that's happening. There's this experiences that were being created, right? So we'll talk about that. So software is only important if it accomplishes something in reality, and probably for people, and not just software for software's sake, right? That's wasteful. And few things are more expensive than building software that doesn't matter. Who's done that? But what this trend is, and it's not just about software, it's also about hardware. It's also about the fact that we're connected with these high-speed networks, right? So every aspect of human performance experience that can be optimized will be, and it's going to be done by people, because software is people. It's us, right? The disruption is the experiences that we create. And disruption is behaviors. And this is a theme I'm going to come back to, is that behaviors change, and we can change them. So there's a very famous quote, "We are not a tech company." That's a CEO at a company being disrupted right now. And then this is something that John Wills put up. You're building a learning organization or losing to someone who is. And this is something, I've literally been saying this for like a while now. No one seems to get it, and we're going to try to teach you what changing your behavior is today. So learning is a sustainable advantage. It's really the only sustainable advantage, but learning is also changing behaviors. If you don't change your behaviors, you didn't learn, right? So to make this point stronger, this trick that I learned from a mentor is you just make the font bigger. So now you're going to get it. Learning is changing behaviors. It's not enough to collect trivia. It must be put into practice. There is no digital transformation without people transformation. All right. So now we're going to do an interactive thing. Who knows how to play chess? Who knows how to play chess? Most of the room. Who thinks they're good at chess? Like, okay, not very many people. That's fine. Okay, so watch this. Hopefully this works, and hopefully I'm still logged in. All right, let's see. So we're going to click on Learn. Oh, whoa, that's not what I expected. All right, we didn't do that. Get connected. I was connected earlier, but all right, so let's try this. So we're going to do a puzzle rush. Oh, how do I do that? Mirror, oh man. Technical difficulties. All right, let's do this. Sorry. Oh, sorry. All right, we're going back to mirror. All right, fine. Arrangement, mirror displays. Should have tested that. In production. All right, so black to move. Now we're here. We're playing chess. What should black do? What's the best move? What's the best move? You can see the whole board, right? There's nothing hidden. Everyone can see all the squares. Everyone can see all the pieces. Yes, right. Okay. And then he's going to take that, and then I got one rook up. All right. What's the best move? Black to move. So you're calling this pawn the black pawn? Yeah. That's what you want? No. Yeah, that's bad. So you want to do this? All right. Now what? Yes. All right. What's next? I want everyone to try to do it, though. Like, think about it. What's the best move? These are all easy. These are simple. So it's white to move. There's time pressure, too, right? Like, competitive chess has time pressure. What's the best move?
Knight 4. Knight at knight to the right column.
Okay. You want to do that? This one? Yeah. Nope. This is a free piece. Yeah, that's right. Now what? So much tension. You saying this one? There's two hanging pieces. This one's in danger, so I'm going to move it, right? Because I got a piece the other way, but now I lost one if I did that. If I didn't do that. This one's a checkmate, right? So you can see like tension on the board, right? But you can see it all, right? So even if you could see the board, the point I wanted to make here is even if you could see the board, you still don't know what to do. Like you have to understand the game that you're playing. You have to understand the position of the pieces on the board, the tension that they're creating, the pressure that they're creating to know what to do, right? So white to move. What's she do? This is going to be checkmate. And these are like super easy. So we're only up to 300 level rated. I'm averaging about 1,800 for chess puzzles right now. I'm aspiring to be better. But this is like a fantastic thing where I can go into this learning mode and I can say like, okay, like I want to learn about smothered mates. And then like there's all these things I can learn. So we're going to learn about smothered mates and we're going to do it. Okay, so now it's white to move. So smothered mates are cool. So what should I do? I think this. No. These are, let's do a different one. All right, so I'm not sure what to do. Do this? No. Let's just do analysis. Oh yeah, obvious. Totally right, obvious. So we're going to fork that. It's thinking. He's going to move. And then that is a mate. Somehow. Anyway. Let's keep going. Let's go back to the talk. But this is like a tool where you can sit and learn a specific pattern and like you have some way to drill it, right? Like what's the equivalent of that for your business? What's the equivalent of that for your strategy? All right, so going back to this. Sorry for the technical difficulties. I'm going to do that, turn that off. And then, all right, keep going fast. All right, so I am literally a B player, chess player, right? So like I can play competitive chess against people, and I get a rating. And right now, I'm an above average tournament player in the class of like chess ratings. So they just had the chess management. My son started playing competitive chess, and like it's really fun. But also, chess is simple, and it's turn-based, and you have perfect information. There's nothing random, and there's nothing hidden, right? But it's still hard to understand exactly what to do, right? Like you have to build this mental model of all these things and see these patterns. Life is not so simple. And this I'm stealing from Simon. So this is right from his book. And like one of the things Simon talks about a lot is chess and OODA loop, right? So now we saw the board, still hard to know what to do. And then this OODA loop. What is this OODA loop? And I think a lot of times people simplify the OODA loop into like go faster. That's not what it says, right? That's literally not what it says at all. And in particular, I want to focus on John Boyd, who made the OODA loop. So the game is the game, right? So this is the OODA loop. Like I know this is the OODA loop because I got off Wikipedia. And so there's not just observe, orient, decide, act. Like each one is its own little thing, and like each thing can go back and feed forward to these motions, and it's like a state machine, right? Only not, but and it has a pentagram. Cool, right? So John Boyd, he's a fighter pilot who focused on developing tactics, and he wrote this manual. So you can, this is actually cut from the book, the Aerial Attack Study that John Boyd wrote. It's like a kind of a tribute to him. Well, no, this is like a short tribute or like a forward and a replication of this Aerial Attack Study. So before he talks about the OODA loop, he talks about this thing. He makes this thing. It's 150 pages of basically how aircraft can fight each other. And this is a table of context. So it's like fighters and bombers, fighters and fighters, and like a bunch of stuff, like basic limitations of a maneuvering target. And you go read the book, and what it is basically the physics of an aircraft. So it's like given the aircraft's capabilities, the armament, the turning radius, the speed, and these relationships between these things, like what can you do, or what should you do to not die or to like kill the other guy, right? This is this model. This is like this game of chess that he's playing. So this is just like some snippets. So I'll just kind of read some of these. So now to perform the attack, we do not use the conventional pursuit curve approach, as this does not allow us to determine the target speed and direction. We need these factors to apply the attack we have just computed. To apply this attack correctly, we use the barrel roll type of attack, right? Like how cool is that? Like jet fighter, woo, barrel roll, right? But then there's these equations, and it's like we need this equation against a 0.8 Mach target, right? And this is how we're going to solve how to like shoot this thing. And then this other one is like a snippet from a defensive one. But without the aerial attack study, OODA loops are meaningless. Like there's no point in going faster. Like you don't have a model. You don't have like if you're just moving the chess pieces as fast as you can, like you're not winning, right? You can see the whole board, but you can't win the game because you don't know the game. So this is a model. I'm going to introduce two models really quick, just because they're interesting and you can go, like these could be an hour-long talk by themselves either. So there's like this notion of single loop learning and double loop learning. So single loop learning, everyone kind of does this naturally. It's like, oh, I have this thing in my head, I'm going to try it, and then like maybe I'm going to change and adjust. Double loop learning is how do you go back and revisit your assumptions so that your models, you're basically updating your models so they're better understanding, right? Oh yeah, I meant to say like this, if I can understand this book, then I can be a master. Like all I have to do is understand 500 pages of chess books. I'm working on it, it's fine, we'll get there. So I'm updating my model, I'm updating my assumptions about the game. So another one that's really fun to play with, and this is from Sanghi in the fifth discipline, is this notion of the domain of action and the domain of enduring change, and like how you going back and forth between these. So in both sides you have pathologies, right? If you spend too much time in the domain of action and don't update your models, then you're basically like stop learning, right? And you can go into some organizations, you're like, oh, you stopped learning in 2003, right? And it's like, I could tell by WebSphere or whatever. Sorry, Agnew. And then like you go to some places, and I think this is one of the dangers of like some of these new tools is it's like, oh yeah, we're gonna philosophize about like all these things that we could put dots on this map, and then like, no, you gotta go play. You gotta go play the game, right? So mapping is an exercise in making assumptions explicit and visible. And mapping is basically, you're trying to build and apply an aerial attack study to your domain. Like you're trying to understand your domain. And it can bridge the domain of enduring change to the domain of action if you're using it right. So how much should you map and how often should you map? Well, it's really a question of what game you're playing, right? So what's appropriate, the level of detail, completeness, and the cadence is a question of what scale of game are you playing. So first decide what game you're playing and maybe who you're playing against. And then there's this notion of like different time scales. So this could also be an hour-long lecture, but you basically have these different brains. And the types of decisions that you need to make as a jet fighter, the time scale that you make those on, that's reptile brain shit right there, right? Like you got to do that right now. It's over if you don't. Where some things, economies, they might move in much longer cycles, right? So the time cycle, this is from signal theory and signal processing stuff. A continuous time signal can be represented in its samples and can be recovered back when sampling frequency is greater or equal to twice the highest frequency component of the message. So that's a lot of gibberish that basically says, if you're not sampling enough, you can't recover the signal, right? And you can recover signals up to like just under half of what you're doing, right? And if you don't do that, then you can end up with these like weird aliases, and like that's another hour-long subject on signal processing. But I really like math. Did I mention I like math? So nodes and edges are cool. So this is one of the things I see in a lot of mapping. It's like you draw these dots. I like equations, and I especially like equations of balance. Like if I look at things and the units over here don't have like some way to like map to the units over here, like my brain explodes, and like I want it to fix it. So like when I see two nodes connected and you don't have like some meaningful way to explain to me like how those transfer functions work, like I'm like, okay, cool story. Who knows what this is? These are Maxwell's equations. This is basically how you can capture the behavior of electric and magnetic fields. And from this, it's a very elegant derivation. You have a lot of information. Like it tells you a lot of things. And so this is simple, but it's also very dense. And it tells you like where basically the electric potential and the current and the change in current over time in some space. All right, so what I want to encourage people to do when they're going through these mapping exercises is think about how things add, subtract, multiply, and divide. And what's like the actual flow from each node, and not necessarily like spend all your time in the domain of like BSing yourself to death, but like figure out if there's a meaningful thing that we can apply these equations to, and then actually test it, measure it, right? And like this is super easy when you're talking about servers. maybe less easy when you're talking about markets. So what are the units and functions? What are the inputs and outputs? All right, now we're going to revisit this DevOps thing. So developers, operations should work together. This is me, legacy me, 2010. System administration is evolving, look more like software development. And we're evolving as a global community of sharing solutions. So this last bit is the most important bit of DevOps to me. Evolving as a global community, right? The fact that I can share information with all these people all over the world that are doing all these things, like that is awesome, and it makes me more powerful, and it'll also make you more powerful, right? So if DevOps is configuring servers, like that deserves to die, but sharing solutions with like a global community of practice, that's amazing, right? And then also there's this model, John who was here yesterday, culture automation, lean metrics, and sharing. And I built a little bit more of a model. This is me in 2019, and I've been giving talks about how I think about this, but how these like interact and add and subtract from each other, and how they multiply and divide, right? So this is DevOps. Oh, what does that mean? What am I supposed to do now? Oh, if you aren't vomiting, if vomiting rainbows isn't working, you aren't vomiting enough rainbows. Because everyone wants the DevOps, right? They want it. Well, what they actually want, this is what they really want. And I heard this in the serverless talk, right? So scalability, availability, reliability, operability, usability, observability. They want it all for free without changing anything. Without changing anything. I'm going to use my trick again. Without changing anything. Because here's this problem, right? So there's this innovation adoption curve. So innovators happen, early adopters, early majority, late majority, laggards. Where are you? Where do you live there? Because here's the problem, or a problem, it used to bother me more, now I like to just accept it, is that these first adopters are actually looking for an advantage, and they get one, right? They seek an advantage and they get one. And that legitimizes the practice. And then what happens is people heard about it, they heard about that advantage, and they're like, we want an advantage, but not really, because what we really want is legitimacy. And this is institutional theory, and this happens every time, and that's why everyone just changes the words. Most people, in like that big fat part, they just change the words. They're like, oh, SRE, oh, DevOps, and then like pretty soon they'll be like, yeah, we're serverless. Sure you are. All right, because people adopt the practice without understanding. They just have superstition, rituals, and hope. And that's like tribalism and fashion drive like most of what's going on here. All right, but we have to change. Can you tell us exactly what to do? No, no, no. Seriously, map it out for yourself, right? Because what's happening is not stopping. You have your own context, and there's these waves of innovation, and they're just going to keep coming, right? If you just think about the evolution of this conversation, the tools in this space since 2009, it's like, I mean, just in the last year, trying to keep up with CNCF projects, right? Like, these are not going to stop. And it's like, it's going to either tip over your boat, or you're going to stand up and surf, right? Like, that's the choice. So pick a wave, and no one can tell you how to surf. Has anyone tried to surf? There's not a lot of waves here. You have to feel it, and you have to be willing to fall, and you have to overcome your fear, and it sucks. It sucks. Surfing is hard. Also, software is hard. And software was always hard. And sometimes people are like, DevOps, and they're like vomiting rainbows, and it was so awesome back in the golden age of DevOps, and they're like, bullshit. This is what it felt like to me. Right? And this is actually a picture of me trying to manage OpenStack. Right? And so this is digital transformation. This is digital transformation the hard way. And I warned you, I just warned you. And this is a little metaphor about warning. So this is a man in Texas who was at a bar, and I think he's trying to impress a girl or something. And he said this, and then he jumped in this lake, and he's dead. And this is actually the guy. It happened. And that's a metaphor for a lot of these adoptions, because you were warned. I'm also going to warn you about serverless a little bit. So these are the 5 stages of DevOps. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. You were warned. Now, serverless, you just get to skip right to depression. You go right to depression, right? And then this is my favorite thing right now, is you go to these places and they're like, we implemented DevOps. And they're like, Okay. Because implementing DevOps is not a thing. Right? There's no such thing as implementing DevOps. It's like a journey that never stops. There's not a thing as implementing Agile either. There's nothing safe about software. Also, Scrum is a terrible disease. See me after class. DevOps is never done. So DevOps is moving up the stack, right? So this is more Simon stuff, but it's like, I didn't say anything about containers, right? This is my definition of DevOps. Optimizing human performance and experience operating software with software and with humans. I have not said anything about containers. And then we heard this little thing. This is adorable. Serverless is about business value. You weren't there, man. Every DevOps Days from the beginning was business value, business value, business value, right? And then it was like, oh, you know, people aren't messing around with software. They're just trying to get business value. It's like, yeah, I've seen what some of you are building. What are you talking about? That is not what's going on. That is not happening. Like, yeah, you're getting some business value, but there's also some resume stuff going on, right? That's cool. The problem is the people. It's us. The problem is us. Because software is hard, but humans is harder, right? So you can just go back through the 5 stages. Because the problem here is humans are terrible and humans are awesome, and these are opposing forces. I also suspect you're probably a human, and humans can learn. And as I've been trying to like pounding your head, you haven't learned anything until you change your behavior. In chess, it's really easy. Like I know I got better. I know I learned because I can beat better players, right? In some of the stuff we do, you have to have like these proxy metrics, and keep convincing yourself of your self-worth, and not whatever. We all have our issues, okay? This is a very famous quote. I don't have time to learn new things because I'm too busy getting things done. Maybe you work with this person. This is the least productive person in the world. And then also, this is a great quote. It is not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent that survive. It's the one that's most adaptable to change. And there's no evidence Darwin ever said this. So this is Little Ideas situational awareness reality check. So this is from yesterday, or last night-ish or whatever. This is a Stack Overflow search of trends for Docker, Amazon Lambda, and Kubernetes. So you can see that. And then this right now is DevOps and serverless, right? So that's cool. And the future might be serverless, but some people need to live right now, right? So are you doing DevOps? Are you doing serverless? Who cares? Are you winning your game? What game are you playing? Thank you. I'm not here to answer questions. I'm here to have conversations.